right now, there is like a nearly 50% chance that the shiny new AI tool your company just bought is just a complete illusion.
Yeah, I mean, a very expensive illusion at that.
Exactly. And look, if you're listening to this, you are probably feeling the weight of the hype cycle right now. Because every time you refresh your feed, there's another launch tweet for some autonomous AI agent that's promising to magically do your job or run your entire business and basically automate away all the friction in your life.
Yeah, the promises are just off the charts lately.
They really are. And it is exhausting trying to figure out what actually works and what is just, vaporware.
Yeah.
But today, we finally have the hard numbers to prove exactly what is real.
It is such a massive relief to finally have actual data on this. Because for the past couple of years, I mean, the marketing has moved at light speed, right? But the underlying reality of what these agents can reliably do, like under actual pressure, has been completely hidden.
Yeah, hidden behind, like, polished demo videos and these vague vendor promises.
Exactly. So we are finally getting a real look under the hood.
And that is the mission for this deep dive. We are cutting straight through the launch creep marketing. We got our hands on a stack of incredibly revealing reports from Acledo. They are this independent AI review desk based out of Prague, and they do not mess around with vendor surveys.
No, not at all. They don't do those self-reported benchmarks where companies basically just, grade their own homework.
Right. So we're looking at their State of AI Agents 2026 report, plus this live reliability tracker from July 9, 2026, and also a deep dive into the massive legal shifts coming from the EU AI Act. Plus, we have a highly specific review of one agent that is actually getting the job done.
Yeah, and their testing methodology is really what makes this so valuable. Because they are not just reading the brochures, they're actually testing these agents hands-on.
Meaning they're actually using them.
Yeah, they go through the command line, they hit the APIs, they use the live products, and they map every single ambitious claim a vendor makes to actual observable evidence. It gives us a very sober, unvarnished picture of the landscape.
So we're going to find out how many of these agents actually survive contact with reality. We'll look closely at one that earned top marks, and we're going to uncover a truly terrifying legal reality that is just waiting for companies who blindly trust the AI hype. Okay, let's unpack this. Is this whole AI agent revolution we keep hearing about actually happening, or are we just staring at a massive industry-wide mirage?
Well, to answer that, we really have to look at the macro landscape that Acledo laid out. So in their initial State of AI Agents report, they tested 664 agents. But as of their most recent reliability report, from July 9, 2026, that testing corpus actually grew to 827 scored agents.
Wow, so over 800 agents.
Yeah, over 800. And what they found, I mean, it completely shatters the narrative we have been sold.
Shatters is putting it mildly, honestly. Because when you start breaking down their categories, the illusion just cracks wide open. Almost half of all the agents they tested, 46% to be exact, fall into a category Acledo calls baiting.
Fading, yeah. And that is a very specific and frankly a very concerning designation. It basically means the agents scored somewhere between 40 and 69 out of 100.
So it's failing, basically.
Pretty much. I mean, the product technically exists. You can log in. The marketing website is incredibly confident, right? But the core promise just wobbles the second you apply a real-world test to it.
Right, like if you buy an AI agent to process invoices or something.
Exactly. A fading agent might handle the first 5 invoices perfectly, but then on the 6th invoice, where maybe the date format is slightly different, it just quietly hallucinates a completely wrong number, or it just crashes entirely.
Wow.
Yeah, that massive gap between the confident launch claim and the fragile, unpredictable product, that is basically the defining feature of the market right now.
It is genuinely wild that nearly 1 in 2 products are basically failing to live up to their own hype. I mean, people are spending real money on these things. And on the flip side, the amount of agents that actually work is incredibly small. Only 23% of the agents tested are categorized as vital, meaning they scored 90 or above.
Right, so those are the systems that genuinely deliver, with hard evidence to actually back it up.
And when you look closer at which agents are failing and which are succeeding, this fascinating irony kind of emerges. Because you would logically think that the most advanced general-purpose agents, the ones promising to act like a digital human employee, would be the crown jewels, right?
You would think so, yeah.
But the general AI agents category is actually the most crowded one, with 154 different products, and it is the lowest scoring across the entire board. They average a dismal score of just 59.6.
Yeah, solidly in that failing, fading territory. Meanwhile, the highly specific, tightly bounded categories are the ones actually pulling their weight. Like, voice agents score an average of 77.5, coding agents score 75.2.
It reminds me of, like, walking into a massive roadside diner. If the menu is 30 pages long and they are offering sushi and deep dish pizza and tacos and a Sunday roast dinner, you can basically guarantee that none of it is going to be good. They are just stretched way too thin. So if the general agents are feeling so badly, why are developers still building them instead of just focusing on the narrow ones?
Well, what's fascinating here is the paradigm of demo versus deliver. That diner analogy explains exactly why we see so many of these general agents being built despite those really low scores, because it is incredibly easy to build a demo for a general agent.
Oh, because you control the environment.
Exactly. You set up a highly controlled environment, you give it a prompt that you've already tested like 50 times to make sure it doesn't break, and then you record a slick video showing it supposedly automating this entire complex workflow. And the market and the investors, they reward that spectacle.
But the second a customer actually buys it and tries to use it for their own weird, messy business data, it just completely falls apart.
Right. Because reliability under an unpredictable real-world workload is super fragile. Narrow agents don't have to guess what you want. A coding agent just writes code. A voice routing agent just routes calls. If an agent does one well-scoped job, it outperforms the ones promising general autonomy every single time.
And the failure of those broad agents isn't just like a minor inconvenience. I mean, some of them fall apart so completely that they literally cease to exist.
Yeah, they just vanish.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
Polito's incident registry logged 19 independently verified availability failures just in this recent July 9 window. They even maintain a dead agents list. 6 agents, including names that had a lot of hype, like Stanley Forex, Plate, and Adaptive. They just vanished. Their websites are down, their products are unreachable.
Yeah, it's wild. And if your company spent 3 months integrating one of those tools into your daily operations, you are now completely stranded.
Which really proves why independent testing is so crucial, right? Like, a great launch day score means absolutely nothing if the system degrades or just quietly changes its behavior a month later.
Or shuts down entirely.
Right, exactly.
So if 46% of these tools are basically illusions, I really want to know what the surviving 23% are doing differently. What does a vital score actually look like in practice? Let's zoom in on one of the winners. Let's talk about Aider. Yeah, Aider is a brilliant case study here. It earned a phenomenal score of 92 out of 100 on Alito's scorecard, alongside a behavioral testing score of steady 80. It was built by Paul Gauthier, and it is a command line interface, or CLI, pair programmer. So basically, it helps software developers write code.
Right. Let's break down the technical side of why it scored so high, because Alito specifically calls out its killer primitive, which they refer to as the diff-edit workflow. Can you explain how that actually operates?
Yeah, so to understand why the diff-edit workflow is so powerful, you have to look at how most AI coding tools fail. Usually, an AI just generates a massive block of new code and dumps it onto your screen.
Just a wall of text.
Exactly. And then you have to figure out where it goes and if it broke anything else. But Aider doesn't do that. It makes surgical edits. It uses something called a diff. And a diff is simply a text file that shows exactly which specific lines of code need to be added, changed, or removed. It is a set of very precise instructions.
So instead of throwing a whole new engine at you, it just hands you the exact spark plug that needs replacing and tells you which slot it goes into.
Precisely. The underlying AI model generates that diff, and then Aider acts as the supervisor. It validates the diff and tries to apply it to your project. And if the AI model hallucinates or makes a formatting mistake, Aider catches it and automatically tells the AI to retry and fix its error before it ever even touches your actual project.
Oh, I love that. It is essentially checking the AI's homework before it submits it to the teacher.
Yeah, that's exactly what it's doing.
And the way it submits that homework is also really unique, right?
Yeah, this is probably the most crucial part. Aider commits every single change it makes to Git, which is the version control system that developers use to track changes over time. And Aider includes a reasoned written message explaining exactly why it made that specific change.
Wow.
So it creates a flawless step-by-step audit trail. If something breaks a week later, you can look back and see exactly what the AI did and why it did it.
And it does all of this while remaining completely portable, too. Because a lot of the big AI tools on the market try to lock you into their specific ecosystem. Like, Claude Code is sandboxed and completely tied to Anthropic. Cursor forces you to use their specific visual code editor, but Aider stays completely model agnostic.
And that portability is a massive advantage for businesses because Aider uses a tool called LightLM under the hood, which is basically a universal adapter. It means you aren't forced to use OpenAI or Anthropic. You can plug in Gemini or Mistral, or you can even run local models like a Llama fully offline on your own machine.
Which is huge for security.
Exactly. There is no vendor lock-in, there is no forced data collection tracking your behavior, and if you run it locally, your sensitive company code never even gets sent to the cloud.
Okay, but I want to make sure we are giving the full picture here, because Shadow was very clear about its limitations too. First of all, Aider has absolutely no graphical user interface. There are no shiny buttons or nice visual dashboards. It is strictly text-based in the terminal. You also have to manage your own API keys, basically the passwords that connect you to these different AI models. And if you have a massive monorepo,
Which I should probably define that for anyone outside of software engineering. A monorepo is exactly what it sounds like. A gigantic single repository where a company shoves all of its code. We are talking over 50,000 files in one place.
right. And in those massive monorepos, Aider's repo map heuristics, which is how the AI tries to build a mental map of thousands of folders to find the right context, they start to struggle. The AI just loses the thread. You basically have to manually step in and tell it which specific files to look at.
Yeah, which is why Slater specifically notes this tool isn't for a first-time user. You have to be comfortable navigating the raw engine room of your computer, so to speak.
Wait, let me push back on this for a second. We are constantly sold this narrative that AI is going to make everything effortless. It's supposed to be seamless, one click, drag and drop magic.
Right, that's the pitch.
But you're telling me that one of the highest rated, most effective AI agents on the market today strips away the glossy dashboard, forces you to juggle your own connection keys, and makes you type commands manually in a terminal. That sounds completely backwards to everything the marketing tells us. How is making things harder a strength?
Because it is trading the illusion of magic for actual mechanical control.
Yeah.
I mean, the marketing sells AI like a fully autonomous, self-driving car. You just get in and take a nap. But experienced engineering teams know that AI right now is actually an incredibly powerful chainsaw.
A chainsaw.
Yeah, you don't just turn a chainsaw on, drop it on the floor, and walk away. You need a firm grip, you need safety guards, and you need a clear line of sight.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The glossy interfaces kind of hide the errors.
Exactly. Aider is designed for developers who want headless or scripted runs. That just means they want to run the AI automatically in the background without needing a human to click buttons on a screen. By keeping your code editor as your editor and avoiding all that visual window dressing, Aider serves as a serious production quality baseline, not a shiny toy.
It's about having total control over the machine. And that specific feature we talked about, that traceability and auditability via Git commits, that isn't just a neat organizational feature for code nerds. Here's where it gets really interesting. That exact kind of audit trail is about to become the single most important legal requirement for anyone deploying AI.
Oh, absolutely. This is the massive shift that the market is just barely starting to wake up to. The EU AI Act is completely changing the rules of the game for anyone using these tools.
And Alito's deep dive into this legislation is chilling. Because for the past 2 years, all the regulatory focus has been on the companies building the massive AI models, the OpenAIs and the Googles of the world.
Yeah.
But under the EU AI Act, the burden shifts. If you are a business deploying an AI system, you have to vouch for third-party agents you didn't even build.
Right.
Like if your company uses a customer support agent or an automated HR screener, you are legally on the hook for monitoring its operation.
And the timeline is what makes this a crisis. Article 50 of the Act covers transparency rules. This mandates things like explicitly disclosing to a user that they are talking to a chatbot or clearly labeling AI-generated content. That applies with financial penalties starting August 2, 2026.
Which is basically right now.
Yes, exactly. And then the much heavier obligations arrive soon after. The Digital Omnibus adopted in June 2026 moved the high-risk obligations, specifically Article 26, which outlines deployer duties, to December 2, 2027. Under Article 26, if you operate a system classified as high risk, you must continually oversee it. You have to monitor its operation in real time, act on the risks it surfaces, and you must do this with concrete, independent evidence.
I mean, this is like hiring a subcontractor to pour the concrete for a massive new skyscraper. You didn't mix the concrete yourself, you just hired the crew. But if that concrete turns out to be weak and the building collapses, you are the one who gets sued. You can't just stand in front of the judge and say, well, the subcontractor filled out a questionnaire last year saying their concrete was good.
That is a brilliant way to frame it because that is exactly how companies are trying to handle AI risk right now, and it is going to fail spectacularly. You mentioned procurement questionnaires. A questionnaire is just a point-in-time snapshot. The second that third-party vendor updates their agent, and these agents push new code updates constantly, by the way, that questionnaire is entirely stale. The EU AI Act requires you to monitor the operation continuously. It is not an annual checklist you file in a drawer somewhere.
And I imagine internal self-evaluations won't fly either, right? Because companies love to test their own AI prompts with their own data and give themselves an A-plus grade.
Yeah, self-evaluations are great for tweaking your own internal workflows, but they aren't independent. You have a massive conflict of interest there. Stating, we graded ourselves and we're fine is absolutely not going to satisfy a European regulator. It won't even satisfy your own company's risk committee when it comes to a third-party black box. You structurally cannot produce an independent assessment of a third party from the inside.
Wow.
And this raises an important question. If you can't trust the vendor's marketing and you can't rely on your own internal questionnaires, how does a company actually monitor a third-party black box continuously? How do you actually get that evidence?
I mean, that feels like an impossible task. You're asking a non-technical compliance officer to somehow monitor the internal thoughts of an artificial intelligence 24 hours a day.
Which is why the entire industry is being forced to pivot toward machine-readable trust signals. Well, Slido is essentially providing the blueprint for how this will work. They run reproducible scorecards against public testing methodologies, mapping what the vendor claims to hard evidence. And crucially, they retest over time. So when an agent degrades or its underlying model shifts and it starts hallucinating, that failure surfaces immediately in the data.
And they deliver this data in a way that your company's software can actually read it automatically, right?
Exactly. Increasingly, the entity choosing whether or not to deploy an agent for a specific task isn't a human reading a review, it's an automated orchestrator program. Alido uses something called an MCP server, a Model Context Protocol server. This allows your company's orchestrator to query an agent's reliability score over REST, which is just the standard way web applications talk to each other in real time.
Okay, let me make sure I'm getting this. Imagine an automated customer service AI is about to process a massive batch of sensitive refund requests. Before it executes that task, your system essentially hits pause, pings the independent ADLO server over the web to ask, hey, is this specific agent currently passing its reliability tests, or has it been hallucinating today? And if the server returns a failing grade, your system acts as a real-time kill switch and halts the operation.
That is exactly how it works. It turns trust from a glossy marketing brochure into structured, actionable data. It is the only way to build that longitudinal record of what an agent did and when, which is exactly what regulators are going to demand to see. You are basically replacing blind faith with a continuous, automated stream of independent evidence.
It really is the difference between saying, we trust the vendor's word, and being able to hand an auditor a continuously updated file, proving you are actively monitoring the system's health.
And as Rita themselves note, as a disclaimer in their reports, while their independent evidence supports this kind of due diligence, it isn't a formal legal certification on its own. But if you are deploying AI in the European Union, the question isn't whether you'll need this kind of independent evidence, it's whether you'll have it on file when someone inevitably comes knocking.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, we've gone on quite a journey today. We are clearly moving past that initial breathless launch tweet phase of the AI era. The data is undeniable. Almost half of the agents currently on the market are fading illusions that just break under pressure. The ones that actually work, like Aider, aren't magical, effortless wands. They are highly scoped, transparent, mechanical tools that give you a flawless audit trail. And the companies rushing to deploy these agents without that kind of traceability are running headfirst into a massive compliance reckoning.
Yeah, adoption has completely outrun assurance. We basically built the skyscrapers before we figured out how to test the concrete.
Totally. For you listening, if you are bringing AI agents into your daily workflows, your team's pipelines, or your enterprise, this is the wake-up call. You have to stop looking at the glossy marketing promises. You need to start demanding independent, continuous, machine-readable evidence of what these agents actually deliver under real-world pressure. The honeymoon phase of AI is over, and the regulators are already at the door. So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive talking about how you're probably drowning in promises about AI automating your entire business. But I want to leave you with a thought that goes beyond just filtering out the bad tools. If deployers are now legally and financially responsible for the spontaneous actions, the weird hallucinations, and the inevitable degradation of third-party agents that they cannot even fully control, Will this legal risk completely kill the dream of autonomous AI in the enterprise? Are we going to see companies terrified of a 35 million euro fine completely abandon this agent era and quietly retreat back to safe, predictable, hard-coded software just to survive? It is definitely something to think about the next time you see a launch tweet promising that an AI agent is going to effortlessly do your job for you.